Adlib is the smartest way to activate programmatic, built for expert traders yet easy enough for any marketer. Launch across all top DSPs without contracts, overhead, or busy work. Schedule a free trial today and start maximizing ROAS with Adlib. Check out Adlib at getadlib.com. Welcome to Open Market, a podcast about building companies in the advertising industry. I'm joined by Franchi and Jonathan Frohlinger of Big Happy. What's up, John?
What's up, Joe? Doing great, buddy. Thursday in the summer, ready to rock and roll. Hope you got some nice weekend plans coming up pre-can, but all is groovy over here in the world.
Jonathan named the company Big Happy because he had seen so many mobile ads make people big sad. He was like, let's turn that frown upside down. Why were the mobile ads sad, Jonathan? Give us the lore. Tell me about your days toiling in the offices of agencies in New York.
Tell you why the mobile ads got a little bit sad, or more for a space of reimagining them a bit. And I think Eric knows this very well from creating such an awesome company in the world of Undertone that helped us kind of follow in that path of creative. But I think what I saw from really getting in on the agency side in 2010, 2011 was there were so many cool tools that we could use and so many cool ways to scale. But as things really progress in the world and we really saw things shift from an ad tech perspective, the proliferation of data, and rightfully so, because that's extremely powerful, as well as platforms, creative felt like it got a little bit left by the wayside. And really saw that from a creative production company that I was at, where we would actually animate and develop a lot of creatives and ship them for trafficking for major agencies. And so this really showed me that there was a huge gap in that kind of process. And what I think it stemmed from was really the aspect that, 20 years ago, you can get a nice Leo Burnett creative crew out there with Matthew McConaughey filming a Lincoln commercial. We got a nice buffet. We got some 15 and 30-second spots. And then it's an extremely powerful medium, right? But really what's changed in that over the last 20 years, instead of just someone frantically running a 30-second and a 15-second spot on VHS to CBS, they're transferring that. The content has stayed very similar in that sense, and that's okay because TV is an extremely powerful medium. Audio in a similar mindset, right? The distribution somewhat changed. Now you've got podcasts and Spotify and Pandora instead of just Z100 and Clear Channel and iHeart. But what I think has really kind of switched in that world is digital got flipped up on its head. It got really hard. And the ability to create graphics, to process those graphics, to stream those graphics through platforms really changed a bit as we wanted to level that up. And so there's some really solid tools that are out there for folks to build and develop and serve creative in. But we really saw the need to kind of build our own creative ad tech stack that could power higher fidelity creatives, bring in things like computer graphics and CGI, which is a huge level up. Brands and agencies have so much on their plate. They're juggling 62 different things away. And so the ability to create ads that will resonate with consumers, that will kind of wow them, is really important, and doing it in a way that's really easy. And while nothing's really easy in this world, we really like to think that we've created a really streamlined process for our teams to focus on that technology aspect. So coming from the agency side, knowing how important trafficking is, verification is, measurement is, we built and we spent the first year building a platform and our publisher tech and our creative ad server and all of those things. Ad servers are so underappreciated in the world of media, but from that stemmed our ability to create a 3D mobile studio that's capable of making some of the most brilliant ads that you've ever seen, whether they're turning Lunchable ham and cheeses into Transformers on behalf of Kraft and Paramount, or showing Baby Bells peeling off of the screen and making you imagine you're at your fridge. It triggers a lot of emotion from a creative standpoint.
I wonder if, and you were sort of pointing to this with the CTV and audio comparison, there historically maybe hasn't been as much of a muscle to create great creative and to allocate the necessary resources to do that in mobile. Because as you said, there's a long history, decades and decades of how does a brand create a beautiful CTV ad or audio ad that's going to really represent them well and make a big impact. But in mobile, there isn't. So probably I would imagine, in the early days of mobile, there's a lot of just chicanery, not very good creative, etc. And so maybe it needed time to mature. And part of the opportunity in Big Happy was just looking at the standards and being we could do better.
Totally. And I think there's been a bunch of new tools that have come out over the last few years that have enabled this. I think the growth of computer graphics and understanding how to create computer graphics, leverage animation, to build upon that and really deliver for brands is massive. Because if you're building a car, for instance, right? 5 years ago, they're held to a static car that can't drive across a screen. We're able to build those models in 1 to 2 days in CGI and have it beautifully move across the screen with physics and shading and texturing that has light bounce off the windows of the Lexus to give you that feel that it's driving across your screen. Or some of the things that we've done with brands to create showrooms from the bottom up in full CGI graphics. And we're able to create every piece of that showroom, render it out, and the rendering aspect of what we're doing as well is huge. As we think about the ability to create higher fidelity ads, render them, compress them, and stream them, that's really what we're focused on at Big Happy is graphics and animation and storytelling, because it unlocks a different part of the consumer's brain and actually stimulates them to remember things, process things, pulls the emotional aspect out of it. And so we've seen a ton of success across our products with huge brands, really driving that and feeling like it is a return to creative. They can see what we're doing and they can feel it, and we show them the behind the scenes, which I think they actually love. We were just down 2 weeks ago with a major brand in Texas, and I kid you not, they were clapping and cheering at the end of it because we showed them the underlying of what we did in just a day or two, and they really appreciate that from a creative level. And we talk to our brands and with our brands about their business, not at them or above them, which there's a lot of noise right now in the world.
Jonathan, when did you start the biz? What year?
So we started at the very end of 2019, spent 2020 really building out the publisher tech side, the 3D studio side, the ad server side, which took about a year. And then we really started going to market in 2021.
So was the original thesis in 2019 basically what you've talked about now, which is this idea of, just like next gen creative capabilities connected to ad tech and media? Or was the original idea something different and, you found your path, going to market in the subsequent years?
Yeah, so it wasn't a clear linear path by any means. We really started out knowing that there were a few folks in the space who were some very strong incumbents and had done some amazing things. We really actually started only focusing on more of our expandable, immersive suite to really try and differentiate ourselves out of the gap. I think once brands saw what we were able to do with our 3D and highly animated units, they really started to shift to how can we do this at scale? We're finding issues with current partners in the high impact space scaling. We understood that coming from the ad tech side, the media side. And so the first thing we did was went and built out the supply and the publisher aspect in a really smart, easy way for publishers. They're too busy. They don't have time to take tons of SDKs and this and that. So we built a really clean code in that aspect. And then we really started to see a demand for our expandable, immersive units, but also the ability to tell story through ads on publisher pages that didn't have to expand. And so we quickly, in kind of 18 months in, said, hey, there's a huge market for what we're doing in both of these, but we really need to focus on the more sunrise units and highly scalable things that can drive to folks' websites, get them into different kind of experiences. And so we did pivot the business a bit as we got going because we saw that brands appreciated what we did across the board, and we didn't need to oversell some of those things to try and be different. We just showed them how we were a bit better and thinking differently through the process. But it definitely was not a linear growth. And we've had some really smart pivots along the way and always lean on the market to kind of guide us. And I think that's the best thing that we ever did while we were building this. We built a product, but we put it to the market. We took real feedback. We iterated quickly, and we upgraded and shipped product to help advance what the market needed.
Mostly brand or agency-centric sales in those beginning days to help you figure this out?
Yep. So we started really specifically going to agencies over the first few years and going in that market. As we've built our agency relationships and have been able to drive that, we've started to go more client direct in the past 2 years in tandem with our relationship, with our agency relationships. They really enjoy putting us at the table with their client. They see the innovation, and so they want it to be a full partner approach. So we've really done a fantastic job there. We were just at the Army base, a few weeks ago, showing what they're doing, other key clients. And so it's grown from our relationships with agencies into their brands, which is a beautiful thing. And then, of course, for some smaller brands that don't employ these agencies, we're able to go to them and really show them how we can help them across the creative process, which is so complex for them. And they spend so much financial resources and operational resources. So explaining to them how we make this process easy, but agencies and brands are the main kind of core of the business. And I'd say about 30% is now brand direct.
Eric, creative was a big part of the pitch at Undertone, right? Ad formats specifically. So I'm wondering if we could contrast your experiences. I mean, obviously you were building a little earlier than John. What were some of the opportunities and challenges in terms of making that creative pitch? Like, what did people intuitively get about it? What about it was hard, etc.?
It's very interesting. We almost like backdoored our way into being a creative led company. And we've talked about this, I think early on in the pods, but like we started Undertone as like, like a format business. So the emphasis was on developing and scaling like unique formats with, quality inventory before the whole creative thing. What we found was when we started like really stepping on the gas and innovating on the format front, some of the kind of concepts that John was talking about, those were very early on at the time, but things like that, we found that brands and agencies loved them, but they had no creative capability to actually produce these units because they were brand new. Who owned them? Within like the creative agency, the media agency, there's a lot of unknowns there. So ironically enough, when we hired a gentleman named Corey Farringal, who it's ironic because Corey is on the board of Big Happy. Not coincidentally, after I tell the story, Corey really became a champion of, hey, why don't we actually build a creative capability inside of Undertone? So he led the effort to really transform our business, which was first acquiring a company that would allow us to have the capability to like build a design in-house and then actually build a design team, which now is actually quite common at, big like creative led ad tech firms. I would assume Big Happy has one. I know like Gum Cargo, like all these companies have them, but that was how we moved in this direction. It was basically trying to give a say yes to customers who wanted to buy these formats, but didn't necessarily have the capabilities to do so. Nowadays with Gen AI and all these next gen platforms that are out there, it's relatively easy to do so. For us, it was to fulfill a need and frankly, kind of existential. Like if we didn't do this, these ads wouldn't have been bought.
John, how do you navigate that link between creative tech and creative services? Because I imagine there's inevitably a service component of the offering, but you also don't want to get pigeonholed as like a creative services agency when you're actually a tech company.
Yeah, so the creative and media does have to work together, right? Because of the complexities across the publishers and the way that they work and those specific integrations and directly into their product suite, it does need to be really combined together. And there's a few reasons for that. As I said, I think the ad server is one of the most underappreciated things, not only in advertising, but all of media. We wouldn't even be able to watch our TV shows. What would my wife do without Bravo, without an ad server that's getting those ads on the TV? But I think the creative tech stack is key there, right? And so what we do in the complexity of the 3D, the weight of those, the compression, the streaming would genuinely break another ad server. And we don't think this, we know this, right? We've tried to run Big Happy ads across other ad servers and it's broken that in that aspect. And I think going back to Eric's point about the world of Gen AI and how that will change things as well, there's no doubt it's moving quickly. But I also think that people need to think about that underlying technology of creating high fidelity Gen AI ads. How are the servers, the trafficking process supporting that? And so we love to build a lot of product at our core and service at our edge. That's a quote by our friend Rashad Tabakawala. But the product that we've built actually builds creative and traffics in the same system. It's dummy proof coming from the agency side. So we know all the things that are going to get messed up, whether it be an unsecure HTTPS link through DoubleClick, the variations of IIS and DV, different pixel partners. And so our technology we've built to cater to that. Our AMs and trafficking teams literally drag and drop trafficking sheets from clients. They can be 54 tags and we return them in just hours because we've built that team and allows us to really serve the clients as a full mobile ad platform with high touch measurement catered to what they're looking to measure.
There's been a lot of conversation in tech recently about moats and then how the nature of them may be changing in the AI era, given the speed with which people can build new tech and copy existing tech. I'm a little bit more bearish than that, I think, on a lot of people in tech. I think that tech First of all, there are things that actually are quite complicated to build, right? And you need a lot of integrations and stuff and a lot of industry specific knowledge. And even if you have AI fueling the development, it may not be so easy to copy as people think. The other thing is distribution and partnership advantages, right? Like people are like, oh, well, you won't pay that much for ChatGPT because like someone can just copy them or whatever. But it's like they have a massive marketing advantage and I trust them and they have all of the memory of everything I've ever said to them. So it's going to be pretty hard at this point, like 1 year in of using it every day for many hours to get me to switch from ChatGPT. So as it relates to Big Happy and ad tech, I was wondering as you were talking about the ad server, like if you had to pick one part of Big Happy that is really like the moat that makes it hard to copy and disrupt what you're doing, would you say that sort of ad tech infrastructural ad server component is it?
I'd say that in addition to our CGI and 3D capabilities. So I'll hit real quick on the ad server and platform. We've built an incredible back end. We have our own builders that auto compress things, codify things. That is real use of, not to use buzzwords, but neural networks understanding where CTA should go, where things should move as we build them. But it's design first. We're protecting brands by leveraging our designers and team to do that. And then we use AI to speed up the process of animation and development. Our new platform that will be launching next month allows us to create traffic and then deploy and distribute ads at scale using AI agents that will solve so much of our internal team's time spent trafficking and beginning that distribution process. And that's where we can come back to the creative and leverage our creative tools that will help us generate additional thoughtful creatives for additional segments. I'm a big fan of One for Some at this point. I think there's a lot of things that we can do reaching specific audiences across the board and using Gen AI to help move those processes. The other thing that we have such a massive leg up on in this world, and I've been in the computer graphics space for 10 years now, and it's moving fast, so folks will catch up. We're always so laser focused on how to continue building and elevating our 3D and CGI platform and engines because it is so unique, taking advantage of new GPUs that can allow us to parallel path rendering and processing. But when you think about the, what I'll call at this point failure of Web3, what people didn't really put into that is it's very hard to make CGI in environments that are created in CGI. If you can make that, it's very hard to render that. If you can render that, it's very hard to compress it, encode it, and stream it. And so that's what we're always so laser focused on is how can we continue to make more impactful experiences using computer graphics. We like to call ourselves the Pixar of advertising over here because that ability in CGI, there's no limitations. When I joked about creating a Lunchables ham and cheese that runs and turns into a transformer for the Kraft and Transformers partnership, you can't do that in the real world. And so that CGI, that graphic, that compression aspect is something we're so laser focused on and always focused on because as the physical and digital worlds do blend further and further, and I don't think it's today or 3 years from now, that aspect of being able to stream high fidelity graphics to whatever worlds we're in when those things mix and mixed reality becomes bigger, we're going to be the leaders in that space and know how to do that. And then final pin in it, the distribution aspect is key, right? Not only can we make these beautiful ads, we integrate to every major DSP, massive publishers that brands want to be around, and we make that process simple to activate beautiful ads. And the simplicity and execution aspect is huge too, and that's why we build the tech.
Here's one thing I'd love to bounce off you. One of the challenges that Undertone had back in the day when we were championing a lot of these ideas was people loved it. By building both the design and tech capabilities, we were able to say, there's like no barriers to doing these things now. Like we can, do this for you and with you. So I think we found that it was like really attractive for innovation use cases or like launch cute use cases or this big campaign use cases. And it was difficult to make this like, something that is always on, systematic, evaluated, on a performance basis. This is now like 10 years ago. I'm curious what the state of these like, creative-led, brand-centric formats are in a world that is, increasingly like trademark Joe Zappa, outcomes focused.
Yep, it's a great question, right? Because typically I think when people think outcomes, delivery, open exchange, they're not putting their mind to creative because it's hard and they're so used to being able to do things and launch things and measure them and quickly pivot. And of course, this product comes at a more premium price point, right? So when you're thinking outcomes, performance, you might not think high impact creative. What we've really been able to show our brands, whether it's, again, driving signups for the US Army, driving foot traffic for massive QSR brands, is the performance comes from creative, not only at a campaign level, which is important for our folks at the agency end who have specific campaigns, specific launches, and those need to be successful. It's also from a brand perspective. When you look at the numbers over brands that continue to invest in high fidelity creative, they outperform their competition. They outperform the market in terms of shareholder value. And so when you commit to the creative time and time again, and you build your brand in a way that brands can, it resonates with consumers. We love brands that we talk about, but it is that outcomes aspect, right? We wouldn't be at this table and growing massive partnerships with brands if these ads didn't work or they were effective just in certain use cases. And that's the real point that we're getting to with our brands is we're a true evergreen partner, and then also being brought in for these local heavy ups, new product heavy ups. And I really do think that's a testament to the team and our client services team, the way we engage and talk to our clients about framing that as well. And the other thing that we do well is we don't respond to every RFP that might not make sense. We're happy to go back to our clients and tell them this might not be the best fit for us if you're just looking to drive a quick app install. There are partners that are better suited for that. But when you want to drive folks through this funnel, or whatever we call the funnel these days, there is that awareness, there is that consideration, and then the lower funnel aspect is fascinating, and I think will be extremely helped out by the world of Gen AI. I think there's so many things in that lower funnel space that can really benefit from Gen AI, because a lot of those ads do just become, hey, you buy deodorant, here's a picture of a deodorant with a 4.5 stars from an Amazon ad. That's going to help those companies quite a bit. But performance is key, and people need to drive outcomes. And that's what we do so well with talking to our brands, is we understand what they need to get to at the end. So we're always going for that and trying to, of course, balance those that have 8 KPIs and explaining to them, what are the first 1 or 2 that we really want to hit.
I was talking to the Vanderhooks earlier this week, and they were saying that when you think about the different components of advertising, they think creative is the area where AI will have the biggest impact long term, but that it might be the last area where you see that transformation occur, especially as it relates to like big brands and holdcos, because they're so protective over creative. What's your reaction to that?
I think that agencies have really nailed the data piece over the last few years. They've nailed the tech and all of those things, which are incredibly complicated if you're really on those sides of things, right? It's not easy to launch and build and traffic campaigns. And so I think that agencies will definitely benefit from Gen AI and those sorts of things. I like to think the first verticals that will make sense are those that already use DCO. This is going to be DCO on steroids. It's going to help a lot of medium and small size brands use Gen AI. I think you're going to see the level of TV investment somewhat slim down a bit, because a lot of folks who spend so much money on TV spots have to then justify to procurement the media investment. And when folks can make really quality CTV ads and TV ads for small and medium businesses, you'll see some of that shift change. So I think, of course, we're all seeing it. We're all really excited by it. I get very excited by what AI does to our business. I think it helps us operationally win. And the other thing that I also urge is, while I'm huge on AI and all of the ways that it can help and benefit and generate things and make people's lives easier from a creative standpoint, what I do also urge everyone out there is to really go play with the products. Go play with VO3 that was launched last week and see if you can make a brand ad. And so while it's progressing insanely quickly and that is compounding, if you're really using some of these incredible Gen AI tools, they can do a lot of things, but they can't deliver an ad yet for a big brand that will make them really use it at scale. And we've seen 1 or 2 use cases, of course, from Volkswagen and things like that, but it's not necessarily eliciting some of that higher feeling. So I do really think with what we're seeing going on at the agencies these days, people should be using these products. They should be understanding these products. But I tried to prompt VO3 the other night to create a chit brand ad, and the bag looked horrible. The people didn't look like people, and it was bread that was coming out of the Doritos ad. So we do need to also urge those folks to push the limits on CGI, to push that to a point where it is going to be more usable by brands. but we're going to get there very quickly. And I'm excited for it because I think it's the biggest boost to advertising. There's too many blurry ads out there. This will help streamline brands' operations and deliver. But it is going to be an 18-month heavy learning curve that I think we're starting to get into now and seeing that market shift heavily. But it's here and it's really exciting from a lot of angles.
It's interesting that you say 18 months because so we're recording this on Thursday, June 5th, 2025. The big news earlier this week was Zuckerberg put a timeline on Meta's, end-to-end AI advertising initiatives. And, he was effectively saying, I think, end of 2026. Joe, you wrote about that this morning. Did he say end of 2026?
Yes.
Yeah, which is saying 18 months from that, which is actually interesting. It's also neat because the other notable announcements this week were from agencies. It was Open Intelligence by WPP or WPP Media and Sigma by MIQ, which were notably very data and transaction centric. Like they were talking about 300 different data partners and different media partners. And notably, they didn't include creative. So your hunch is right. Did they put a timeline on this stuff? Were they thinking that this is an 18-month thing, or were they thinking that there's so much work to be done that creative actually comes way further in the future?
Well, they think that a lot of people in the sort of New York ad tech ecosystem who do come more from that big brand and holdco perspective are missing the point as it relates to Zuckerberg's comments, and I agree with them. What I mean is that a lot of people in ad tech, they see these sort of claims from big tech and from Silicon Valley about advertising becoming fully automated. And they're like, that will never happen. It's just for SMBs and performance marketers and our people, the agency people and the big brand people will never agree to it and yada, yada. And it's you're missing the point. It's headed in that direction. And yes, it might not be it might not entirely happen, but as the word the Vanderhoots always uses, advertising is becoming more autonomous and it will continue to do that. You see that with Kokai, you see that with Viant AI, more and more of the process will get automated. And also, whereas in the past, you might have had, 5 design people, you might have 1, right? And so there's no doubt that the direction Zuckerberg's going in, it'll completely automate things for SMBs, performance marketers. Maybe it'll be, 80% and big brands and holdcos, maybe it'll be 50%, but it'll keep increasing. And, the pressure will be on for companies like Big Happy to contribute to that in terms of automating, the creative production.
And I think you nailed it, Joe. The SMBs, the medium-sized businesses that use Facebook, right? I have a lot of friends who start businesses and do things, and their first money should always go into that world because it's the most targeted. While it's a closed ecosystem, right? You can get in there and you can find someone to make you an ad for a few $1,000s. But now Meta capturing that audience and saying, we'll build you out 10 creatives for it and test that is a very compelling offer to a lot of folks who are running campaigns like that. And so I think it's really starting to get there from their perspective because they don't have the dollars and the resources to do the massive sort of things there. So it is interesting. It's going to be exciting, but I do really wonder the backlash from Meta if we see it at all.
Jonathan, you, as I said, you come from the agency world, then you're at Verve selling mobile ads. I think this has influenced your approach to hiring. And we've talked about how people can get super expensive and Big Happy has more of a long-term approach of, hiring young people, training them, investing in them. But that can also be complicated these days because people don't stay in jobs as longer. So tell me, as a first-time CEO founder, about your hiring philosophy.
Yeah, so I think one of the main reasons that we started this company was to allow for better work-life balance, better collaboration, delivering for values in the space. And so we've always really focused on bringing in the best of best people. And that's something that we've been really lucky to do. Across the board, our team top to genuinely our 22-year-olds who are 6 months in are best in class. And we've always really tried to incubate good young talent and get folks in here and learning the systems, but also investing a lot in L&D, investing in a lot of training, and most importantly, giving them exposure. I think that's what you get or got in the agency world many years ago was this unreal exposure to different sorts of things, whether it were just sitting on the proverbial file cabinet and learning strategy, getting to talk to the folks in the TV room, even if you're not doing it. And so there's this level of exposure and collaboration that we do benefit from in the advertising world, especially in such a creative one. So we really focus on finding incredible young folks, growing them, helping them learn. And that's had a huge payoff for us in a lot of different ways. I think one of the main things that we offer them is the growth for potential. We have a lot of folks who move functionalities and things like that. We help them get involved in projects and different sort of disciplines in places that we wouldn't be able to. We have them talking to clients. We have them doing these things. But one of the things that at the time was a little bit touchy in late 2020, we actually went back to the office. And the reason for that was always very honest is if you want to make real money in this world in New York City at the age of 30, you're going to have to be better than your peers. And you're going to have more exposure and compounded exposure. And I do think that people appreciated that level of honesty. And so we've really been able to grow. We build a ton of products to make sure that our employees are happy. They're doing the things. It's not always rainbows and butterflies, of course, but their time is spent not on billing and automation and trafficking, where if you ask my AM team, that 54 tag campaign would have taken a week. Now it takes an hour. That's a real impact on their day to day. And so that's been an amazing thing for us as we continue to grow and scale and build our products. And you mentioned that folks don't really stay at places. I think one of the things that we're most happy about is our great places to work represented 100% satisfaction. We've had 4 employees voluntarily leave in 6 years. And I think that's a huge testament to how much leadership focuses on building products, knowing the pain points of this world. And when we get inefficient, we get on calls and we figure out ways to make it easier for team members so that they can go contribute to our brands and drive our partnerships.
Incredible.
It is really incredible. I think our leadership team is so good, but we really understand all the ins and outs of this business, and we work our butts off to make sure that our team is happy and content because they're phenomenal. They're our biggest assets. Our people are our biggest assets. And that's one of the most fascinating things as we're able to grow. The company is able to be adding different talent pools of all points, whether they're absolute genius client services folks that come over from incredible companies like Foursquare, or getting to bring in top tier talent from places like GumGum and Innovid. I think that's because of the people who are here and how much they appreciate that balance, and making clients happy is our number one thing. We are in a hospitality business that masquerades as an adtech business. You have to execute, you have to deliver, and you have to delight your clients, whether that's through your customer service or the ads that perform so well. But we are laser focused on being so hospitable to our clients. And I think it's a huge thing that our brand partners appreciate, and it makes more of a real relationship than a transactional one.
That's awesome. Hey, let's shift gears. Talk about out of home. So you're taking what you've built in mobile to the next screens that are not in our pockets.
They are not in our pockets. We're super excited about the digital out-of-home expansion. It feels like such a natural evolution of our products, being able to deliver higher graphics, more emotional ones that resonate with consumers and make their jaws drop on the street. So we've been spending the last year or so really working up our CGI and technical workflows to be able to deliver these at higher scale. But we're so excited to announce the hiring of Gabby Stoller, who comes over from Walmart and Vistar and built up that team over the past few years. She's an absolutely unreal talent, going back to our ability to find talent out there. But I think what we're so excited about from a digital out-of-home perspective is being able to add value to our clients in that space. I think there's a lot of places and mediums that people are excelling in out there. We're very focused on not being jack of all trade and masters of none. We want to focus on the places where we can go to brands and drive value. And these bus panels, urban panels, billboards are great places to reach people, but there's more to add from a creative perspective. And it's missing a little bit of that graphic involvement. And so we think our capabilities in graphics and 3D and a way to manipulate the mind and have things appear to be coming out of bus stops, or fish swimming out and jumping at you for some of our aquarium partners, launching some really cool things with some sports brands, is a natural evolution. We know that our clients want it. They want to do more in the out-of-home space, and it's a space where we can measure the impact of mobile and digital out-of-home together. But some of the things that we're starting to put out there are genuinely jaw-dropping. And again, I think the market helps us decide where we go with our product. And so being able to talk to our brands and agency partners over the last few years is a huge, huge win to bring this to a bigger screen and the real world. And as I mentioned, we're very excited about that kind of coming together of the real and digital worlds and how they can impact people but it's a huge win for us as we get into that world. I think it's going to create that level of stickiness with our clients, not only the big national ones, but some of our local brand partners as well. And it's genuinely jaw-dropping, some of the things that we've been able to do. And it again goes back to that distribution aspect that you guys mentioned, right? If you can solve one piece of the puzzle, you can't just expect that distribution to be there. You can't just make a creative as a service and expect it to distribute freely. We're going to be able to tap into the largest billboards, urban panels, airport terminals, lots of other exciting locations that we'll be announcing as well, and deliver ads that really stand out and drive those purchases at the point of store or move the needle for brands.
John, Big Happy is a sharp client, so obviously I have an inside view here, and I've seen a lot of ad tech companies move into complementary lanes. And I think that what's especially notable about the Big Happy expansion from mobile to DOH is like a lot of ad tech companies that made their bones in display or online video have tried to get into CTV over the last few years. And often it's like, I'll ask them, why are you getting into CTV? And they're like, well, there's growth in CTV, so we want to be there. But there's really no natural reason for them to get there. There isn't a natural synthetic tie between where the business has historically been and where they want to take the business in the future. Whereas with Big Happy and mobile and DOH, it's such a natural extension because, like you were just describing, 5+ years ago, getting into building a mobile creative tech business because like the creative was overlooked. The standards weren't high enough and there was room for innovation in that area. You're now taking the innovations that you pioneered in mobile and extending them to another format, DOH, that is infamously overlooked, right? And that has started to get more attention in the last couple of years, but where advertisers could probably, it stands to reason. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be a DOH expert to imagine that these big billboards, digital or otherwise, those advertisers could drive better performance by innovating on creative there.
You nailed it. We're always trying to create value for our brands. If we can't do it, there's a lot of fantastic partners that can, and we know that we can create value in this space for them. We're here to create value for our partners and not just chase dollars where that makes sense. And that's really what builds out our partnerships and our business as we keep growing, constantly adding value and constantly being able to go into a room and say, there are a lot of folks who can do things well. Here's why we do it so much better. And we're about to publish a really incredible research study with Nielsen that proves a lot of what we've been saying over the last few years, and excited to extend that to the digital out-of-home space because it is different. It does go back and evoke different emotions of the brain and unlock ways that people see things. And that is ultimately advertising at its finest, is getting to that emotional aspect of the brain, but also the one that's able to retain information so they feel the emotion and then they retain it and they go and buy your products and vouch for your brand and tell their friends about it. So it's such a natural evolution for us. We've been so excited to kind of get into this space. And again, just one where we know from the research that we've done that this is a very hard thing for folks to do, bringing these sort of animation and renderings to screens. But we'll be able to do it at scale and really drive value and business for our advertisers.
Jonathan, I love your passion for this stuff. It's not surprising. You got a great employee retention. You've got an infectious way of talking about this. Quick question before we break, and this is super New York City, downtown centric. Have either of you guys seen the screen that connects the Oculus at One World Trade and Brookfield Place, and the recent upgrade they made to make it like 3D ads running all the time?
It's incredible. I forget exactly what it was last year, maybe something for Bravo and Runway, and what they did with some of those creative and graphic manipulation is absolutely unreal, right? And those are the type of things that we'll be able to bring to the world at scale. And there's some folks doing incredible things in all mediums, but that's very hard to replicate at scale. But when you see that, you don't forget it. It was really impactful. And it's exciting too, right? It's a different element and it's only going to get better. 3D graphic creation, animation is only going to get better. And it's important while that gets better in the same way phones have gotten better, but they still haven't figured out how to make them smaller because the batteries need to advance, right, to keep them going. We're going to have to build the tech that supports this high level of graphical animation, the serving of it, the compression of it, the streaming of it. And so it's just such a cool space and it's so exciting. And it gives that different element that brands have been missing for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. For those in the New York City area, you should check it out. It's like one of the coolest screens I think you'll ever see. Jonathan, this has been great. How can people find out more about you, Big Happy, and reach out to you?
just swing over to bighappy.co, check it out, see what we're doing. They got a nice little contact form down there. You can always reach out and give me a shout on LinkedIn, and would be happy to tell you about what we're doing and show you some fun stuff and how we're helping brands be a little bit different. But this was awesome, guys. Thank you for having me. My first pod, so I hope I hung in there with you two and did all right out there.
You absolutely did.
You made us big happy. If your mobile ads are making you big sad, call Jonathan. Got to get him in there. That's his domain. All right. Thanks very much, John. Take care, guys.
Thanks
See you next week, everybody.